I'm Jeff Asher, and this is the Jeff-alytics podcast. Somewhere between crime is out of control and the system is broken, there's a quieter question that matters more. What does it actually take to make a community safer, measurably safer, year after year? In this episode, I'm joined by Bill Reynolds, the Atlantic County, New Jersey prosecutor, for a nuts and bolts look at one of the most dramatic homicide declines you'll see anywhere. Atlantic County went from 30 homicides in 2012 down to 12 in 2024 and just 4 reported homicides as of late 2025. Bill breaks down what changed on the ground. Targeted enforcement focused on the people most likely to shoot or be shot, tighter intelligence coordination across units and agencies, and a version of bail reform that's less about slogans and more about decision-making. Who gets released, who gets detained, and how to use risk tools without becoming a rubber stamp. He also talks quite candidly about the hard moments, like spikes in crime that test public confidence, and how his office tries to pair public safety with diversion lanes for mental health, addiction, and housing instability. In this episode, we discuss the how-to for creating a fairer and more efficient criminal justice system. Bill, thanks for joining the program.
My pleasure, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
So, question I ask all my guests to start off, can you walk me through your background and sort of how you got here?
Sure. So, born and raised in Atlantic City, New Jersey, in a small town just over the bridge, Brigantine, which is Atlantic County, New Jersey, one of the 21 counties, one of the most southernmost counties. Born and raised in a middle class or lower middle class family. Parents were working poor. Dad was a teamster and a truck driver, and mom was a chambermaid. So I had a lot of humility and gratitude growing up for opportunities. My brother and I'm the youngest of 4, but my brother and I are the first ever to have a college education and first ever to have a law degree in our family. So I really take every day as an opportunity. I worked my way through the local municipal system. I was a municipal prosecutor. I started in my hometown of Brigantine, worked through 10 separate towns over a period of from 2012 to 2022, and then was so fortunate to be nominated by Governor Murphy in May of 2022 and took office June of 22 and confirmed by the Senate in August of 2022. And it's been an amazing journey and ride to serve the community where I was born and raised.
So how would you sum it up? What is it like being the chief prosecutor in Atlantic City?
So Atlantic County is a very diverse county. So we have multiple towns that are urban that suffer from extreme poverty in the rates between 35 and 40%. We also have shore towns that are affluent, suburban, and shore communities with $5 million homes and people that are driving around in $300,000, Range Rovers and wagons. So the diversity of the community makes the job one of the most unique. We have 300,000 residents, 28 million visitors because of the casinos. And we also have a migrant farm population out on the western side of our county in Hamilton and Mullica because they're blueberry farms. So we have every type of person, every type of community, and every type of crime, and every type of challenge. So when I go speak at both state conventions and national conventions, we have a very unique situation here in Atlantic County. And I'll give you the short answer. Jeff, it is really interesting job, and no day is ever the same as the day before or the day after.
All right, so I'm going to immediately put you on the spot here. What is your most entertaining story about being the chief prosecutor in the county?
Entertaining. So I'm going to tell you, people will be shocked by this. When I first got in, because there was a segment of the community who really didn't know me, I was offered so many things and like dinners and tickets and shows and trips and hotel rooms that I had to say, like, I am not that guy, right? And I am from old school, no, when I tell you no free lunch here, and I'm never taking even a slice of pizza. I think, the culture that existed before me was quite different. And not, naming names or anyone in specifics, but I'm going to tell you, New Jersey is known. They make TV shows about New Jersey and New Jersey politics. They make TV shows about Atlantic City and Atlantic City politics. So I walked into a different realm that I was accustomed to, and it took about 6 months. And one particular person who really was aggressive in trying to invite me to a dinner at Ruth Chris Steakhouse, he is now in federal prison for committing a crime while being an elected official. So,
oh, wow.
luckily I turned that one down as well.
That sounds like a TV show in itself. The prosecutor who keeps getting offered bribes and won't take them.
Yeah, amazing. First 6 months were very interesting.
That sounds fascinating. What makes New Jersey so unique across the country in terms of just how prosecutors are deployed there?
So happy you asked that question because we are unique. We're one of only 6 states in the country that is not a district attorney election elected by the people. We are nominated by the governor and confirmed by the Senate, and the local senator has what's called senatorial courtesy. So if your local senator does not support you where you live and where you serve, most likely you will not be the prosecutor. So you need to have both the governor and the senator, and then the Senate Judiciary Committee and the entire Senate agree to you. Jeff, it was a 15-month process. I was vetted so many times and interviewed so many times. I filled out 5 separate questionnaires that were 35 to 40 pages long. I got interviewed by over 100 people, 40 people on one occasion at a state judge and prosecutor appointment committee in New Brunswick, New Jersey at the Law Center. I mean, I could write a book just off the process to be nominated and confirmed. But I'm going to tell you, Jeff, what it did, and I think for your listeners, it will give a real good idea. It really made me value the opportunity once I got it, because the journey to get it was so difficult. And by being difficult, I take not a single day for granted in the position.
Do you think that's a better system than electing the prosecutor?
So I just got back from Indianapolis from a National District Attorney Association leadership convention. And I interacted with a lot of elected DAs, and their priorities, some are very same, but others are different because they have to run, every 4 years. So their media spotlight or their media attention or media strategy may be different than mine. We are confirmed and get a 5-year term. So now we're in the midst of a governor election right now. The next governor will decide whether I stay or leave, right? So it's not something that is ever a priority for me to get attention for myself. I really shed the light on the people doing the work. I don't include my name in any press releases. I don't include my name on our challenge coin. I really shine a light on the people that are doing the work. I'm the leader. I'm here to make the announcements. I'm not the one actually going to court, right? I'm not the one that's doing the investigations. I may be making the decisions to make things happen, but I'm not the one doing the work. So I think if you're an elected DA, you really need to have that attention on yourself because it's the only way you're getting reelected, right? And a appointed DA or prosecutor like we are in New Jersey, I think it gives you the ability to focus on your work and focus on your people more. So long answer short, I think it is a better situation in New Jersey because the vetting process was very difficult. They're not letting people who can't do the job get through, right?
Yeah. And you're not inherently tied to the governor that nominates you. You may be if they're reelected, but
that is correct. And I'm an independent, Jeff, and proud to say it. And I'm the only independent in the history of Atlantic County. I'm the 30th county prosecutor in Atlantic County, and I'm the only independent presently serving in the state of New Jersey and the only independent member of the County Prosecutors Association of New Jersey. And I literally have no ties to either party, and very proud to say that.
Does the job change? Do you think it's significantly different from the job that the elected prosecutors are doing by being an appointed prosecutor?
At times, because an appointed prosecutor can act without fear or favor, where if you're an elected DA, you may be running on a ticket on somebody that you may have to investigate or prosecute. And I think that is probably a more difficult situation to be in. I can't identify with that because I've never done that, but I can tell you we make decisions without fear or favor here in Atlantic County. And it's very invigorating to serve the people, knowing that the integrity is in place regardless of who's on the other side of the investigation or indictment.
And how does your office use data when you're doing your investigations or at any stage of the process?
Excited to talk about data because I'm a data analytics guy. I have a nephew who works at Deloitte, who graduated from Villanova and got his master's of accountancy and CPA all by his 22nd birthday. And him and I geek out on data analytics. Started with sports, and then when I got in this position, I geeked out on data for intelligence gathering, detention hearings, and targeted investigation and prosecution. And I have data that will absolutely prove that New Jersey's bail reform that occurred in 2017, when used as a public safety tool and using the data and the intelligence that we can gather, is effective to keep the community safe.
Can you walk us through the bail reform and sort of what it did and how it differs from reform being done elsewhere?
Absolutely. So New Jersey prior to 2017 was a cash bail system. After 2017, a risk-based system. In my past life, when I was a municipal prosecutor, I saw people not be able to get out of county jail simply because they couldn't afford the bail. So my line, and if you can't tell already in our brief conversation, I have nicknames and lines for everything. Municipal court and people in county jail that couldn't afford it were in debtor's prison. They weren't there because they were a danger to the community. They were there because either themselves or their family couldn't afford to post the bail that was actually, placed on their case. Post 2017, bail reform became a risk-based system where the judges are given an algorithm and a public safety assessment, PSA score, that is used as a recommendation. The judges really need to make an examination of the defendant, the risk of the defendant recommitting the crime, and the safety of the community, and can deviate from that PSA. New Jersey, since 2017, the bail reform system has morphed because we've had a second round, and they actually called it bail reform 2.0, where the people who created it in 17, that was a 5-year process, came back out and got information from stakeholders and people who are actually operating in the system and are making tweaks now. Obviously, with a new governor election happening today and a new governor coming in, with the aid of a new attorney general and a state legislator, tweaks can happen. But I can give you data that's going to show why New Jersey's bail reform, when used appropriately, absolutely can keep the community safer. So I'm going to give you some numbers.
All right, let's hear it.
So 2012, Atlantic County had 30 homicides. In 2017, the year of bail reform, Atlantic County had 22 homicides. When I started, Jeff, in 22, we finished the year with 16 homicides. Last year, we had 12 homicides in 2024. In 2025, and I'm going to knock on wood, we only have 4 homicides, and 2 were only shooting related. The other 2, one was a home invasion, a justifiable homicide not charged, and the other one was a domestic violence between people that live together. Okay, so in 2012, 30 homicides, 2025, only 2 that are shooting related. How did that happen? Our intelligence unit in the Atlantic County Prosecutor's Office, in combination with our guns, gangs, narcotics, and major crimes units, use data and use intelligence gathering to identify the most dangerous people that are roving the streets in Atlantic County. And what we did is we created what was called a Violent Crime Initiative, VCI. Our office is the quarterback of the VCI. We put all the players in the room, collaborated with state, local, and federal partners, including our sheriff's department and our corrections department. And we have some people, some men and women in our office that are very good with technology and very good with social media. So we used the data, we used the social media, we used the known shooters in the county, and we identified the top 10 people, and we kept cycling through the top 10, charging, detaining, charging, detaining, charging, detaining. Jeff, here's another data point that most people don't know about because it's buried in an administrative office of the court's bail reform report that comes out quarterly and yearly. Atlantic County, since our administration has taken over, has been number 1 every single quarter on detention rates. I'm going to tell you why that's important. Atlantic County's average in 2023, 51%. In 2024, 46%. In 2025, 45%. The state average is around 17%. Okay. How this works is when a person is charged with a crime in New Jersey, The officer and the prosecutor's office has to make a critical decision. Do you put the person on a summons where they're released, or you put them on a warrant where you take their liberty away from them? In Atlantic County, we take that decision very, very serious. We are the lowest in the state on warrants at 33%, and that number has been consistent since our administration has taken over. So we're at 67% summonses, letting people go back into the community and be hopefully a contributing member, keep their jobs, keep their homes, keep their cars, and be contributing members. The 33% that are detained, we are successful almost 50% of the time. Well, we're only identifying the most violent offenders. And when those violent offenders are detained and they're the most likely to shoot someone or be shot, we're taking the shooters off the street, which has now reduced violent crime. Not only had the homicides come down all the way from 30 in 2012 to only 2 this year that are shooters, that the shootings have reduced. Wait to hear these numbers. It's amazing. Even just looking at the last 5 years since we started, in 21, there was between 40 and 44 shootings, depending on how you looked at the data. Well, let's go low number 41. This year in 2025, we've only had 10 shootings in the county. 10, right? Why? Because we're only targeting the people who are shooters, who will shoot someone or be shot, using the data and the probability to identify who those shooters are. We've been so blessed with this success. Obviously, it's not me. It's a collaboration with all these people, and by the grace of God that we're taking all of this data, applying it to real life situations, detaining the most dangerous and saving lives. It's been amazing, an amazing journey. And if you can't tell, I'm excited, to talk about it, because the results speak for themselves.
I can. And I was just looking up the numbers, not just in the Atlantic City area and the county. It's really dramatic and impressive what the entire state has done. I was looking up Camden, New Jersey had 67 murders in 2012, had 19 in 2024. Newark went from 112 in 2013 to 39 last year. Jersey City had 24 in 2016 to 7 in 2024. Atlantic City, just the city itself, had 19 in 2012 to 7 in 2024. And I counted 3 over the last 12 months. So is there something in the water in New Jersey beyond just the bail reform that is sort of, because this is not the national trend. The national trend is kind of everything's been falling since 2020. This has been a 15-year trend almost in statewide.
Yes. So I'm going to tell you where the rubber meets the road in New Jersey is the judges having the courage to detain the people that need to be detained. And as the judges are seeing the benefit from detaining those people, I think they're more encouraged, right? And I think some of the judges, sometimes especially the inexperienced judges who didn't practice criminal law, who are now in the criminal division, I think they're really, hedging and uncertain to take someone's liberty, because that's a big step. But they have to look at the greater good, and they can't be a rubber stamp for the PSA. And what's happened is the PSA is the algorithm that the machine spits out. The judge has to look at the human factors. And our job as prosecutors is to give them the intel. So we have experts in our office on gang criminality that are actually admitted and certified experts that can testify at a detention hearing and say, Judge, if you release this person, it is very likely in the next 30 days they're going to shoot someone or be shot. Right. And that's changing the judge's decisions on keeping them in. But we need to do the work, and we need to gather the intel and then actually use the gang criminality statute, not only to protect the community when sentencing comes, but when the detention hearing happens. And that's where the difference is at the detention hearing. There's more experienced people involved early in the criminal justice process in New Jersey than anywhere else in the country.
You talked about bail reform. I want to get back to that just a little bit. The political environment, especially coming from the president, has somewhat soured on bail reform as a concept, and it's been very much almost a shotgun approach against the entire idea. There's obviously a smart way to do it and a not smart way to do it. Has it gotten harder for you to speak about it as a really positive approach to and a smart policy for New Jersey and for the county, or is that something that you have to tune out and you don't care about?
I'll be very direct. I don't really care what anybody has to say about it. We are doing our job. We are keeping the community safe. And I'm going to give you, and it's great because I just spoke about this at the National District Attorneys Association convention in Indianapolis. I'm going to just give you the straight facts, right? And that's what we do in our press releases, right? I very rarely hold press conferences. We put it out in press releases. We give the people the facts. And the answer I gave to the very first question in my interview with the governor's office, right? And Governor Murphy absolutely was a gentleman through the process that I got through and got nominated and confirmed. He had a chief of ethics who was a prior AG interview me. First step. And in an interview, the first question was exactly what your question was. What do you think about bail reform? What do you think about the people pushing back against bail reform? And this is the answer that I gave because I think it puts in perspective for your listeners and for anybody who's paying attention to it. Bail reform is great for the person who gets released, who goes back into the community and becomes a contributing member. Get a job, have their job, keep their job, pay their bills, pay child support, coach little league teams, whatever it may be, right? The criminal justice process does not disrupt their lives. Okay, bail reform is horrible for the victim and the victim survivors when a person gets out of jail the fifth time and then goes and commits a murder, and that person and that person's family is on the other side of bail reform. It doesn't matter what political party you are, doesn't matter who you are, what color your skin is, what religion you practice, or whether you believe in anything. If you're on either side of that issue of bail reform, you're going to have a perception of what bail reform is. Unfortunately, what happens in today's world, especially with media, 30-second clips, people get excited and then rally around an Instagram reel, a Snapchat story, or a story on a national news media that wants to spin bail reform that it's bad or that it's great. And that's the world we're living. So I deal only in facts. And I gave you all the facts for Atlantic County. And based on what we're doing here, I can tell you about the bail reform in New Jersey has been very effective to keep our community safe. Period. The end. People can say whatever they want. I'm dealing in facts.
You talked about the perceptions. Do you have an idea of, and we previously talked about how much safer everything has gotten in the last 10, 15 years. Do you have a feel for what the public thinks about crime and violent crime and just the perceptions of safety in your county?
So in Atlantic County, and I'll give you my experience this morning. So got up bright and early, went and voted at 6 a.m., went to daily mass at 6:45. When I'm leaving daily mass, I had 5 separate people stop me and say, praying for you and your family. It is amazing what you and your office has done. The amount of shootings, homicides, fatal accidents, all things that people pay attention to. I had 5 separate people mention public safety to me as I'm leaving the voting place and church, right? So I get like reaffirmations every day from our community, how much they appreciate how our goal is to keep the public safe and to keep our community safe. And I think that's where politics are going. Clean and safe. That's going to win over everything else. People don't want their cars broken into. People don't want their houses broken into. They want their children to be able to walk to school. They don't want their kids killed on their bike, right? I mean, we have all kinds of challenges that come up. But when people are paying attention to what's going on, they want a clean and safe community. And keeping the shooters in jail, using bail reform as a public safety tool, that's attractive to people. People understand it, you know?
And surely at some point in your tenure so far, there's been a stretch where things have not been great. There's been a surge in shootings, and hopefully it was short-lived, or, a bunch of car break-ins or thefts or whatever reason, somebody that your office let out committed a crime. How do you deal with the perception issue then when kind of I'm going to be smart. We're not going to put people in jail that the numbers say don't need to be there, but we're going to put people in jail that the numbers do say need to be there. How do you account for that when the public perception is we want everybody in jail? We want to, safety requires that. How do you handle that?
So great question. And I had that in the beginning of January of 2024. We had 5 homicides in 10 days. And that was a struggle to get through because the knee-jerk reaction of both elected officials in Atlantic City and in the county and the public was like, bail reform, catch and release. They're all committing crimes. We need to lock everybody up. And I needed to be the person that stabilized the ship and explained why that was an anomaly. And I went on local radio stations and I defended the numbers and I defended what we were doing. I acknowledged that it's an imperfect system and I own the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I own when we make a mistake. And one of the things that happens, Jeff, and I'm sure, I think we're probably close in age, you start figuring out when you own a mistake and you say people, you're right, I'm sorry, the argument ends, right? Because there's nothing else to argue about. So
Right.
I've gone, and the line that I use and we use in our office, and Jeff, just to let you know, I am surrounded by an incredible leadership team of people with decades of law enforcement experience. One of the things they really appreciate, about our leadership group and what we're doing is if we make a mistake or the problem is ours, we own it. And I will actually say, I'm going on the record, this one is on us, right? And own it. And when you do that, it really diffuses situations, and the people that will listen will stop. And the ones that will not listen and will keep going, you're not changing their minds anyway. So like they are what they are.
How do you balance the needs of public safety with the research? I had Anna Harvey, an NYU professor, on a couple of weeks ago, and she has I think a very influential, at least for me, paper on misdemeanor prosecutions and how, especially for first-time offenders, the recidivism rate plunges if you basically don't prosecute people who are being arrested for their first nonviolent misdemeanor. How do you kind of balance those needs with the needs of public safety and kind of the idea of restorative justice versus public safety?
So great question. When I came into our office and our administration started, we had no diversion unit. We had one diversion program for pretrial intervention for first-time offenders, and we had recovery court. We built a diversion unit. And what we did is we created lanes for all of these people who are first-time, maybe even second-time offenders. And we created a lane for what's called the at-risk initiative for people who are at risk to be homeless. They don't need to be in jail. They need stable housing. So we created the at-risk initiative. We created a mental health diversion court before the statute was ever passed in New Jersey, because there's people that need just their meds to be regulated and to be followed monthly and not to be in county jail, right? So we had at-risk, we had mental health. We created what was called AC Leads, which was an early diversion program simply for people with addiction. Another lane to not have to go in the full recovery court, because full recovery court's a years and years long process. And then we created, with the help of Atlantic Care, our hospital system down here, but our partner in public health is public safety. We created a lane for people that simply suffered childhood trauma, and that was the cause of their crime. Right. And we get them treatment. And then we created, with the Attorney General's office, Arrive Together, which is an early intervention program where mental health screeners go out with police officers and actually interact with people. So there is no arrest. Right. And then we created, which was even more fun to create, was we created a diversion unit that encompassed all of it. And we put a very compassionate, empathetic chief assistant prosecutor who has 25 years of experience, and she knows when to hold them, when to fold them, when to prosecute, and when to give somebody a hug. And by creating the program with her as the head of it, Lynn Heyer, it's been incredibly successful. And that's been a evolution from when we took office in 22 to where we are now in 25, including getting the county to give us more money in our budget and to put more prosecutors in that diversion unit and to partner with the court that allows us to do these things. So that's really how you balance the tough on crime versus restorative justice. Is you find new lanes and new programs, and you create things that have not existed before, and you have to be innovative to be smart on crime to get those people back to be contributing members of society.
That's awesome. It's great to hear. I have a question. I have no idea what the answer is to this, but what NFL team does someone from Atlantic County support? Does that make you an Eagles fan, a Jets fan, a Giants fan?
I'm so glad you asked this. A lifelong Philadelphia Eagles fan, season ticket holder since I was in law school. I took student loans to get the tickets in 2000 and no, I'm sorry, 1997. 1997. I graduated law school in 1998. When my kids started playing ice hockey, my brother took the tickets over. He still goes, and I occasionally go, and I'm actually going to a game later in the month of November. But been to the Super Bowl in 2004 to support the Eagles when they lost to Jacksonville. I did not get to them when they won in Minnesota, and I did not get to go last year as I've been obviously busy with this job and raising twin 16-year-old boys. But bleed Eagles green. Sat in the 700 level in the 90s when I was in law school. So I had all the experiences, and I actually went with two Catholic priests, Father Mike and Father Perry, with about 15 other guys. So you can't imagine the stories that I have.
Yeah. You're the second prosecutor I've had on the program, and now the second Eagles fan I've had on the program. So the next prosecutor will have to not be an Eagles fan.
Awesome. Awesome.
Last real question is what's the sort of thing that keeps you up at night? What really worries you?
Another incredible question. So one of the things that when I go to church, I pray for is no senseless loss of life here in Atlantic County. I have 300,000 residents and 28 million visitors that I take this personally. I am personally responsible for. And I created a leadership team of people that were all born and raised in this county, and we really take it personal. So if there's a fatal accident on Route 30 down the street from my house, I'm upset. I want zero. I want zero shootings, zero homicides, zero fatal accidents, zero drug overdoses. So I take it personal. Our team takes it personal. And, we're building a community, and we want our children to raise their children here. So that's really where, the rubber meets the road for me. How can I get these numbers as close to zero as possible? And what keeps me up is bad decision-making by our youth, right? People preying on our elderly. And when you have, whether it's elected officials or law enforcement, that may not all be rowing in the same direction, because we really need to get everybody, rowing in the same direction to come together as one, regardless of what political party, what you believe in. This is a small community. Everybody knows each other. Atlantic City has all these visitors, but everybody that lives here is born, raised, worked in casinos. So it's one of those situations where, the senseless loss of life, I really take personal, and I'm fighting for zeros every day. That's really where my mind and my heart is.
I should ask, and I didn't. Does the fact that Atlantic City has all these casinos, does that change the types of crimes dramatically that you see, or is it you've got 300,000 people, you see the same crimes as everywhere else?
No, the casinos are revenue generators. They also are attractive to people who believe they can come here and make decisions and then leave and not necessarily take into consideration what they would do at home, right? The whole line, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Well, Atlantic City is a mini Las Vegas, and people come here, they're drinking, they're gambling, they're doing drugs, and they're making bad decisions. So we've seen some really, really heinous crimes here, crimes of opportunity, some really sad things that wouldn't normally happen if there wasn't, that vice of drinking, gambling, and addiction involved. So it is a unique place to be the prosecutor, Jeff. I will tell you, we have seen some things that you would never imagine. It's changed my perspective on life, to be quite frankly with you. I really cherish every day. I try to be present with my children and my family. It's not easy, but I feel blessed to have the position and then be making those decisions.
So what's next for you?
So my term is through August 8th of 2027. And what I promise our staff, our residents, our citizens, and our county is that every single day that I have in this position, I'm going to show up and try to be 1% better than I was the day before and give my 100% effort until my last day. And when we have a new governor, and I know where I'm showing up for work on August 9th of 2027. We're just trying to be the best I possibly can be. And we'll see. You never know. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities for people that are in law enforcement, that are in leadership, and that are, district attorneys or prosecutors. I don't know where my future is going to take me. I'm really trying to focus on raising my children. I got a couple years left in high school, and I got a couple years left on my term, and really try to be the best I possibly can be for our community.
Well, Bill, I really appreciate you joining, and this has been a great conversation, and I wish you nothing but the best.
Jeff, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity and wish you and Amber the best in your endeavors here with your podcast. It was a pleasure. You asked all the right questions, I have to tell you.
All right.
Including the Eagles fan. Awesome.
There we go. I did not know the answer. I wouldn't have asked if I'd known.
Awesome. All right, Jeff, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to the Jeff-alytics podcast. Be sure to subscribe, and to learn more, head on over to ahdatalytics.com for more information and previous episodes. If you like what you heard, please leave a glowing review, which will help others to discover the show. Until next time, I'm Jeff Asher.